Now, you probably can't see it, but from what I can view on this video, it's really interesting because those blades were going around at incredible speed, and the video indicates a very slower speed. So obviously it's to do with the amount of frames per second. But that's my Air Max, and it's working really well. I've got a 3.5 meter pole, hopefully to exchange for the one that's up there ready to get it above the treetops, and then I know I'd have a lot more energy going into my batteries. But that's a real plus, because that's the first time I've actually seen the red light, the red LED light underneath the actual turbine itself go on, and which indicates that the batteries are being charged up. So there's been other successes, and this is the harvest time, but I have to say there's also been lots of failures, and it's not just me who's had problems with the tomatoes. I mean, they were so diseased, it was unreal. I do get 1 or 2 tomatoes per day, but for the 30 or 40 plants that I have here, it's really quite a sad story. And I mean, here's an indication. It's just didn't want to grow much taller than 1 foot. The Artemisia is doing very well. This is the medicinal type, and that will sell seed, and maybe it will be too much of a pest next year. I'm going to have to be plucking out the Artemisia from in between the parsley, which also sells seeds, and some of the leaf chard, which is self-seeding. So that's the idea here. So I want to go over to a perennial system. Some of these broccolis have been in here now for the 2nd year. Certainly, if I show you how much growth it's done in 1 year, or maybe 1.5 years, I can expect something from those next year. But this is the dry bed, which is why I have all these sort of like drought resistant plants in here, and I've selected them specifically for either pest deterrents or flower for the bees. And especially in the last couple of months, it's been a real drought for flower, but now the rosemary's coming out. So I'll just go along a bit, and what I thought were F1s, you see these flowers that are coming out here, they won't produce fruits, most of them. But then suddenly the first fruits started to come, and I think I've counted 7 or 8 gourds, and I'm afraid to say that I've been telling everyone they're melons, but they're not melons. They're gourds. And let's see if I can find you a decent sized one. Well, there's a small one. That's how they start off, you see. And it's coming to that point in the year where the plants will die off and put all their energy in what fruits they have, so they can create seed. And the other problem I have here also are rodents who eat them, or butterfly. And you can see there's if I just go in there, there's another little gourd coming along. But I want to show you something with a bit more size, decency about it. Like for instance here, look at that, here we are. Okay, so that's a fast growing one, which means basically the more established the plant is, the bigger the leaf and the quicker the gourd grows. But it's such a lot of energy to put into fruiting. And there's a nice tomato, but I'll leave that on there for a couple of more days before I pick that one to ripen on a sunny shelf. It's such a lot of energy to put into flower and fruit set that the plant will wait right to the end of its genetic cycle. And well, look at that, looking at me there again. These peppers are really fast growing. I've been picking these quite young. They're perennials in the Mediterranean climate. Sometimes we don't get too much frost, or like we did this the beginning of this year, we had loads of snow. So we go along, and I've got these sunflowers, and I put them in very late because I forgot I had saved the seed from last year. But I'll save the seed on those again, and These are artichokes. Now I've had very little success with them, but the more they establish themselves, the more chance you'll get flour coming out on those as well. And that's what we eat here. We eat the flour, and it's a culinary speciality, really. I've got lots of chilies, and I've been making lots of curries. And this, I am now certain, is a turnip. And, or is it a parsnip? I think it's a parsnip, sorry. It's a parsnip, yeah. And I put loads of those in, thinking that, well, you know, I must have sown a seed on those because they all look the same. And lo and behold, most of them have survived. They're quite drought resistant as well. And those were the French packet of parsnips which were donated to me, along with parsley. And if I can show you some of that parsley, let's have a look, which is now coming along. This is like French parsley. These are ancient varieties, and parsley is such a great mineral accumulator. And this is the established self-seeded stuff. It grows pretty much as a drought resistant plant. You see, this parsnip, I'm going to have some really nice carbohydrates this winter. And fortunately the courgettes didn't do so well, but if that can just produce a tiny little fruit before the end of November, I'll save the seed now, because that again, it was an ancient variety donated to me. And this is all self-seeded brassica, and obviously brassicas don't come true, so you'll get a variety of plants when you save the seed yourself, a variety of types. So what do I have here? Well, I've got another one of those. The aubergines that are sort of coming along now, but here we are. We have another courgette, and that's the ancient variety, so that's beginning to produce flower. Now I've seen these grow like 4 times the size of that, and that's when they really want to produce nice size fruits. So whether they produce a fruit this year, I don't know. But in terms of flower for the bees, well, the gourds really do put on a show, you know. And when times are tough, you'll find the bee going into these flowers, even though it's probably got a very low nectar quality. The other thing I want to say is, if we can look at the corn on the cob, this is all saved seed. So this year I'm going to select for the best cob, the most vigorous, because obviously you're saving seed and genetic variation occurs because of it. They're so small, and they just get like blitzed out by insects before you can even crop them. For instance, this one here, this is a nice tall one, so I should mark that one for seed saving, so next year I know I'm going to have strong genetics. Or like this one here, for instance. Okay? Don't eat all the cobs yourself. And behind those, I've planted up the tomatoes. As I say, I haven't done really well. And there's another very good example of what happened to most of them. And some of these tomatoes were bought from a garden centre, so it's quite possible that as plantlets, they were carriers of some form of disease. And to finally conclude in this food tunnel, this is the first year I'm planting, if I can step over, first year I'm planting carrots, and I started these off in propagation trays which were floating in a water butt, and as you can see, I've had to transplant them meticulously, each single plant, and it's just worth the effort. I mean, it's, for me, living on a farm, it's 1 or 2 hours work at a time. That's not a lot of time to spend transplanting carrots, where most people would just sow them in situ and then thin them out. So that's another plant which, interestingly, I want to see if it will self-seed itself over the coming years, if I leave a few of them in there. And right at the end of the tunnel, burying this vine, which hasn't done so well this year. It's not produced any fruit and it's died back, but that will be established now, especially with all the watering that's going on around it, with the aubergines, the cows, the artemisia, the tomatoes. There's pepper there, and if anyone recognises it, and this was another gift, this is physalis, Cape gooseberry, and that's I'm hoping that's not the Chinese lanterns, which is the ornamental type, but the real Cape gooseberry, which is a delicious berry hidden in a very sort of like thin valve of a sheath. And you'll see that maybe on another video another time. And the bougainvillea has struggled this year, but it's establishing. Once it's established, it's very difficult for it to die. But I suppose the real great success in this tunnel is this sage, and I've never grown sage so well before, and great for cooking. But I think, God, I can just smell that coming out that whiff now, you know. I think that would be really good for making, what they call those incense sticks, where they bundle up a whole load of sage and then waft the air with it. When the name doesn't come to me, but that's a nice Christmas present type idea. And I think just to finally end, I even got the audacity to plant invasive weeds like grass, and I stick it in there. Why? Because it fills a hole and it survives, and when everything else is dead around it, that's still going along, and that dies back also. And one of the things I dug up from somewhere else, which can become a weed, is, I think this is Himalayan balsam. So it's got a beautiful flower. It's not a bee flower, but other insects like to go onto it. It's a weed though, and when that gets going, it's almost destructive. Well, time to sign out, and I'll leave you with one final view.